to be more like Christ today is still God. You try to do that yourself and you're going to fall flat on your face. It is God. You try to take it over and say, Lord, it's okay. I got it from here. I can handle it from here. As soon as you say that, and you're becoming more like Christ, guess what you're going to do? You're guaranteed you're going to do it. And that's why you have a number of Christians around today saying, I give up on that. I'm not going to try that any longer. I give up on it. And that's what you have to do. You have to come to giving up on it and asking who? It's all God. Jesus Christ came into this world. He lived. He went to the cross. He rose again. We did nothing to bring that about. That is God's work. We heard the story of this wonderful love. We did not make the story. We only received the story. Sometimes Christians, in this world we live in today, there's a lot of Christians that are suffering right now. Some physically, but others suffering because contemporary society has told us what? Yeah, it's just stories. You guys made that up ahead of time. All this stuff is just really not real. You made it up. We only received the story. We didn't make the story up. Who made the story? Who assured it before any of us had a chance of responding to it? And so love woke within our hearts. The conviction of sin came. Oh, by the way, folks, you can't pass that one up in the sequence. If you have inherited your religion because you're a fifth generation Seventh-day Adventist, you got a problem. What's your problem? If you've never had the conviction of sin, and you've never gotten down to your knees, and you've cried to the Lord, Lord, would you please forgive me my sins? If you've passed that step, you're sitting here as a very religious person, but not a spiritual one. And that can happen. Where religion gets passed down from generation to generation. Oh, my grandpa was. Oh, my dad was. My mom was. And that's why I am today. Salvation through the genes. You yourself have to have had this experience. And Paul says, when we understand what the Lord has done for us, we can do nothing but say what? Oh, Lord, I give you my love. And when after the conviction of sin comes, and with it there comes an experience of forgiveness and salvation, we did not achieve that. If you can sit here today, and I hope you can, I have salvation by the grace of Christ. I hope you can say that. If you can honestly say that, whose work was that? Paul says it's just his work. And isn't that what Paul's trying to say in this whole book of Romans? What is the book of Romans about? What's the whole matter about? Why did he send this to the Romans? The Romans were discouraged. They had some problems. He says, no, I want to write to you and tell you, we can be assured we are not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, and we have salvation through his grace. And he was trying to encourage the Romans and in turn us today. And so, it's all him. What we discovered a few Sabbaths ago, verse 26, we don't even know how to pray. Read verse 26. We don't even know what to pray for. It even has to be him through the presence of the Holy Spirit to help us what? Pray. Sometimes prayer has been presented as a formula. You've seen those presentations, how to pray. And you get a list of 5 things, and if you follow these 5 steps, then you've prayed correctly. On all those lists I've ever seen verse 26 in the steps. And what does Paul tell us in verse 26? You don't even know what to pray for. Even that is the Spirit's working. I need to look at my watch instead of the one back there that's wrong. All right. So, to become Christ-like is all His work and not ours. He decided, predestined, He decided ahead of time, before He even created us, what He was going to do for our salvation. And then we come to verse 30. And Paul presents in verse 30 that God is our salvation every step. The first thing He did was to predetermine that He was going to make us like Christ. Decided to save us. The next thing He did, He called us. If you haven't received the call from Christ, if you only have a religion that's been passed on down through generations and have never received the call from Christ, you are not participating in the preordained plan of salvation. He calls. You have to receive that call. And then He justifies. Justifies. Along with that, Romans 3:20, because by the works of law no flesh will be what? Justified. Who is it that justifies you? Whose work is that? That's His work again. And then in those steps in verse 30, the next step that you find is glorified. What's it mean to be glorified? Have we been glorified yet? No, but how bold was Paul here in this sentence to use what we know in Greek as a prophetic perfect to say that it already has happened even though it hasn't happened. He was so convinced of this plan for your salvation that he said, it's already done. Even though you haven't been glorified yet. He used that prophetic perfect, saying you can count on it. You can count on your salvation and you will be glorified. Quite bold of him, wasn't it? To say that. But he said, I've predetermined to have you become more like Christ. And so God knew what He was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape the lives of those who love Him along the same lines as the life of His Son. The Son stands first in the line of humanity He restored. We see the original and intended shape of our lives there in Him. After God made that decision of what His children should be like, He followed it up by calling people by name. After He called them by name, He set them on a solid basis with Himself. And then, after getting them established, He stayed with them to the end, gloriously completing